this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and in tribute to the late Robert Redford I will be taking a look back at some of his most notable movies, and here I will be looking back at the hardened prison drama called Brubaker. Released back on June 20th, 1980, it stars Robert Redford in the lead of course, alongside Yaphet Kotto, Jane Alexander, David Keith and Murray Hamilton, and also a very early screen appearance by Morgan Freeman. The film was directed by Stuart Rosenberg. Taking inspiration from the 1969 book Accomplices to the Crime by Tony Moran and Joan Hymas, which recounted the events of a real-life prison in Arkansas where corrupt and abusive activities were uncovered. Now, the film Brubaker sets its story in 1969, where in the earlier scenes we see a group of prison inmates on the bus on their way to a state prison in Arkansas. On their way to the prison, we immediately see prisoners who are injured, bruised and beaten down. We see them tired, exhausted due to the lack of food and supplies. Many of them are scared and terrified of the way that the prison is run. We see them fighting against each other more out of rage and frustration over the way that they are being treated. When a mentally unhinged prisoner takes another captive, threatening to kill him, one prisoner comes forward, calms him down and puts him back in solitary confinement. The prisoner who did this is revealed to be Henry Brubaker, the new prison warden, much to the surprise of the current officials. Now, Brubaker purposely went undercover as an inmate so he could see firsthand how things were being run. Once asserting his position as warden, Brubaker sets about changing the current order, outlining the lack of food, supplies, parts of the prison that need construction, including the roof, certain corrupt officials who he fires immediately when he learns of their exploitation of prisoners for money. And in the beginning he finds some friends and allies, but his idealistic approach starts to irk the corrupt individuals, especially when he starts to discover darker secrets of bribery and murder that took place. He tries to alert the local government and media, but becomes frustrated as he is opposed at every turn with no higher support. Brubaker remains determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost, even if his own life comes under threat. Now, when looking back at Brubaker, it is a solid movie with some strong compelling moments, and on the outset it seems that it's going to be quite a powerful movie, commenting on the mistreatment of others, corruption, government and media ignorance, and asks the question as to whether the true evil exists more outside in society rather than the prison inside. And all of these type of themes will naturally interest the viewer into the story. Yes, the prisoners are very guilty and there's a reason that they are here, and the movie clearly establishes that they are not innocent, but when does punishment go too far, and that sense of humanity should always be retained? But Brubaker doesn't quite go all the way with these themes in the way that I think it should. The strongest part of the film is easily the first 10 to 15 minutes, where we do get some brutal and violent sequences of the prisoners' treatment seen through the eyes of Brubaker whilst in the guise of an inmate, and during this time he doesn't speak a single word. And this is when the movie really brings you in, and I thought we were initially in store for a vivid drama where Brubaker at first is a mysterious personality, and later on we would find out perhaps he's either wrongfully imprisoned or he would be that iconic rebel to stir up an uprising, and we would be set for a thrilling escape or revolution story. But we really don't get that with this film, and it's very rare to have a strange occurrence of a movie that actually lessens once the lead character starts to speak. Now, this is nothing against Redford's actual performance, which is a very solid, completely believable and rootable, righteous character, with an unrelenting resolve to see justice served, both in and out of the prison. Now, we could have got more depth into his motivations, as we normally associate prison wardens being much more concerned with just keeping the inmates in check rather than treating them fairly. But once Brubaker reveals himself, the movie does lose a sense of its energy and the story stalls. Yes, we get plenty of scenes of Brubaker imposing his reform and also struggling at the same time with no quick answers or solutions, but we just don't get the same intensity or urgency. Things feel far less important and less purposeful, and it doesn't become a bad movie, just a less compelling one. Now, yes, all of the other supporting characters have their moments, but again, we don't really get enough depth. It is very good to see Yaphet Kotto in a prominent role, and this was probably the best period of his career within the mid to late 1970s. And of course, it's very surprising to see a very early appearance also from Morgan Freeman, who incredibly so wouldn't start to come to cinematic prominence until 6 or 7 years after this movie's release. And in terms of the story itself, we do get again some very vivid sequences later on. We do get a climatic shootout and also a hint of a message, and should a certain level of corruption be tolerated in order to get what you ultimately want. But once more, the film doesn't really strive enough with these issues, and when we get to the final scene, the intent is there for something truly emotive, but ultimately, in the grander scheme of events, nothing really changes. So we move on to the movie's release, and it was a solid success, grossing over 37 million from a $9 million budget. And as we came to the 80s, this would end the run of some hugely successful and consistent output for Redford. As he moved later on throughout the 80s, he would experience far fewer hits and success. And as a movie, Brubaker isn't as referred to as much within Redford's career, especially as the bigger movies that he enjoyed throughout the 1970s. I'd also argue that many years later, he would go on to make a far superior prison movie in The Last Castle, released in 2001, where he played an experienced war veteran who was a prison inmate going up against the tyrannical rule of James Gandolfini. And that film had far more purpose and impact, as well as carrying similar themes and tones as what we saw here. But Brubaker overall remains a solid entry with good intentions, but definitely could have done with a bit more drive and impact that it definitely had within its opening minutes. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at Brubaker, starring Robert Redford. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you more quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.